Somebody said that it couldn't be done, but she, with a chuckle, replied that maybe it couldn't, but she would be one who wouldn't say so till she tried. So she buckled right in, with a trace of a grin on her face. If she worried she hit it, she started to sing as she tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and she did it. Somebody scoffed, "Oh, you'll never do that. At least no one has ever done it." But she took off her coat, and she took off her hat, and the first thing we knew, she'd begun it. With a lift of her chin and a bit of a grin, without any doubting or quit it, she started to sing as she tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and she did it.
Good evening, TJ National Honor Society, family, and guests. I'd like to thank the chapter board members for the kind invitation to speak with you during this lovely ceremony. And thank you, Riley, for the kind introduction. But you know, I never wanted to attend TJ. As a matter of fact, I had every intention of failing the admissions test on purpose. You see, I knew the environment I'd be faced with, and it was one I had experienced before. Before my family moved back to the States from Berlin, I had absolutely no concept of race. In Germany, you were either German or American. That was it. And that was all I knew. But when we moved to Highland Park, Illinois, and no one wanted to be my friend, it took me about half a semester to make the connection that no one wanted to be seen with the only black girl in the whole second grade level. But when my teachers began to realize I was academically superior to my peers, their attention was all I sought, making me a bit of an excellence junkie ever since. Around the same time, my mother, fresh out of the military, began applying for jobs. Although she didn't find many that held her interest, she encountered the FBI at a job fair and decided to apply for their special agent position. A few months after passing all of their qualifications, she received a letter explaining how they were stopping her application process since by the time they would be able to assign her to a class, she would be too old. Not that she was too old, but that she would be too old. But also, around that same time, a group of black FBI agents filed a lawsuit claiming discrimination against black applicants and agents for promotions within the Bureau. To defend themselves, the FBI claimed they simply couldn't find any qualified applicants of color. But a review of their own files proved that to be false. So they called my mother back, asked her if she was still interested, and immediately assigned her to a class. She graduated from the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, 1 month before she would have been considered too old. Being gifted comes with a set of pressures. Pressure to perform, pressure to be better than your peers, and oftentimes, for individuals from underrepresented groups, pressure to serve as a representative for your entire community. No one knew this better than my father, so when he sensed that I had no interest in going to TJ, he gave me insight into a conversation he had had at work. A conversation between himself and a coworker who discouraged him from making me apply because of how devastated his daughter was after not making it in. Because of my experience, I couldn't help but to take offense to the coworker's assumption that I wouldn't make it in if his daughter couldn't make it in because all he knew about me was that I was black and his daughter was not. So the motivation I had to get into TJ wasn't because I was super passionate about STEM education. It wasn't because I was interested in molecular biology or TJ's tech labs. It was because I felt a responsibility to represent my community, to prove that we belonged here and could get in if we wanted to. Now, should that have been the responsibility of a 14-year-old? Probably not. But how many of you felt you had to get into TJ to make your parents proud? or to meet the expectations of your peers and middle school teachers, or because you felt it was a necessary stepping stone to that Ivy League institution you dream of getting into. In my 4 decades of living, I've come to realize that all these reasons are self-serving and not the best use of giftedness. I had this epiphany in 2019 after a random chance encounter with the late Congressman Elijah Cummings. After making a disturbing discovery about my daughter's curriculum and asking what he could do to fix it, he essentially told me, nothing, you gonna fix it. But what he said to drive home his point are words that I haven't yet been able to unhear. And those words were, we who have benefited from an education, it is up to us to grab a hold of an issue and run with it. So although I may not have pined over the TJ experience, I couldn't say I didn't benefit from a TJ education. Even when I ran for public office as a grown woman, the fact that I worked for the FBI and CIA impressed no one. But when I said I graduated from Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology Governor's School of Virginia, I got everyone's attention. So what? Why does it matter? It matters because you aren't just TJ students. You are TJ National Honor Society students. You now have a master key of excellence. And what you choose to do with that key can either open doors for others coming behind you or completely lock others out. There are many self-serving things you can do with your key, with your gifts. You can use them to puff yourself up, to brag on all your college essays and resumes, or to establish intellectual dominance at every cocktail party you attend. Trust me, I've literally seen it happen. It's very cringe. Don't be that guy. However, the 4 pillars of your National Honor Society chapter are character, scholarship, leadership, and service. So what I want to do this evening is to implore you to take the unique life experiences you have had, which distinctly shaped your key, your gifts of scholarship and ambitious character, and use those gifts to lead in the area of service to others. The month after I met Elijah Cummings, I had finally gotten to a place where I was eligible for promotion to senior executive service, which in the executive, federal government is like above the GS-15, it's like an executive. But something I saw bothered me. There were no executives in my entire division who looked like me. And it became what I call a unique agitation, and I'll come back to that. But in 2019, when the director spoke to my extremely diverse division, he completely ignored the elephant in the room. And as I looked around, all I could hear were Elijah's words. You see, 30 years after the same excuse of we can't find any qualified applicants of color, FBI employees of color began to question themselves as if they were indeed unqualified. Forget the fact that they had to be damn near perfect to make it into the Bureau in the first place. I watched so much talent shrink, go to waste, and eventually walk out of the door because of the constant devaluation of their knowledge, skills, and abilities. Someone once taught me that when there are problems or situations in the world that seem to bother only you or bother you more than most, chances are that is your problem to solve, your unique agitation. And that will always point you to your calling. And boy, was I agitated than most of my peers. But I had a few keys and a few gifts that they didn't. Not only did I have TJ on my resume, something that mostly shielded me from ever having my qualifications questioned, and not only did I find a workaround to gain 3 years of CIA joint duty experience at the executive level after the FBI's unwillingness to provide me with any leadership opportunities, I also had a gift of historical knowledge. You see, I had been studying the FBI's culture since I was a 9-year-old little girl. And instead of worrying about my own promotion, I heard Elijah calling me to take that historic education and grab a hold of this issue that, with the keys that I had, only I could. Not for personal gain, but for the benefit of so many others who were just as talented, but who lacked that unique 30-year insight. So not only did I step to the director of the FBI to challenge his false claims that they just hire and promote the best people, but being a TJ nerd, I FOIA'd the data. Not only did the data show a statistically significant disparity among women and minority promotions, but that in the first 2 years of the director's term, the number of Black professional FBI employees promoted to executive was 0. And once I proved that our feelings were indeed facts, you might as well have painted a red target on my back. Although the retaliation I faced for calling out this injustice led to 2 full years of unemployment and me filing a federal lawsuit against the FBI, which cost me my entire life's savings. And I may be heading to trial any day now. I recognized that my giftedness didn't make me exempt from this battle. It qualified me for this battle. You see, I realized that as talented as many of my peers were, they didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't know that for women to be admitted into the FBI Academy in the 70s, a lawsuit had to be filed against J. Edgar Hoover himself. To avoid breaking the law, the FBI said, fine, we'll admit women who are 5'7" or taller, essentially continuing their discrimination until after his death. They had no idea that applications for Black FBI employees were marked with a C for colored and buried in the bottom drawers of recruiters for decades until lawsuits like the one that opened the door for my mother were filed. They had no idea that the seemingly objective system put in place for promotions in the 2000s was completely subjective, and all the feedback they received from selection officials was pure gaslighting, and that they were indeed overqualified for the positions they sought. What they didn't know is that no steps had ever been taken toward equality in the FBI's history without a court order. These historic patterns and practices not only inhibited the professional development of so many talented career servants, they also create a toxic culture of groupthink, which, in an intelligence and federal law enforcement organization, creates a threat to our national security and our civil rights. So seeking justice to remove these barriers with the court order became my calling, because my giftedness and unique agitation dictated not only that I could, but that I had an obligation to do so. There are many doors your giftedness will open for you. The question is, what will you do on the other side of that door to create opportunities for others, to be a light for others, and to be of service to all mankind as you have been gifted? Your work may revolutionize medical research or completely transform business process change management, but the most responsible use of your gift is to center others as opposed to yourselves and your salaries. Giftedness is a form of power. And some of the best advice I received from a retiring CIA officer who told me that there are 3 categories in which one should always be able to bend their actions: helping people, solving problems, or helping people solve problems. He said, if you can't bend your actions into one of those categories, chances are you've been drunken by power. With great power comes great responsibility. And the responsibilities of giftedness are great. As you continue along this journey called life, you must remember that no matter where you may find yourself, you will always have a level of privilege because you were born gifted. And for anyone who has followed the X-Men series, you know that gifts can be used to both immensely help or devastatingly harm others. Let the uniqueness of your gifts and experiences, or your unique agitations, guide you to your calling. Don't allow money, fame, prestige, or bragging rights to drive you, because when you are truly operating in your gifts, those things will come in due time without you having to chase them. Don't let TJ or other affiliations put you on the map. Let the work and good you do in the world put TJ on the map. That, not our test scores, is what will truly sustain us as the #1 high school in the nation. Be responsible with your giftedness. There are generations of babies yet unborn relying on your good stewardship. And there are thousands to tell you it cannot be done. There are thousands to prophesy failure. There are thousands to point out to you one by one the dangers that wait to assail you. But just buckle in with a bit of a grin. Just take off your coat and get to it. Just start to sing as you tackle the thing that cannot be done, and you'll do it. Congratulations and welcome to the National Honor Society. Do something good.